What is going on, college basketball fans? Welcome back to another video. Today we're taking a look at more of your guys' college basketball hot takes, and we had a bunch to go through this time. I tried to get as many as I could in this video, but I just went and picked through my favorites. I'm ready to get it started. Just want to say subscribe if you guys are new. Over 70% of you guys that view my videos are not subscribed, so please go onto my channel and hit that subscribe button. It really helped me out. We're trying to grow to as many subs as we can and build just this awesome college basketball community that we have here. So make sure you guys do that, and let's get into our first hot take. Our first one is going to be a very hot take, and it is from Slim Guy 8, and he says Iowa State doesn't make the second weekend of March Madness. So that is a very bold take, considering Iowa State has been one of the top 5 teams the entire season so far, and they have one of the better, if not the best, backcourt trios in the entire country. So that is a pretty bold claim by Slim Guy here that I just don't agree with. On a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being I think it can happen, and 10 being I don't think that there's any possibility of that happening, I'm going to give this a straight 9.0. And here's why. I think it is possible for anybody to lose in March Madness, even though I see Iowa State getting to at least the second weekend, which starts at the Sweet 16, if not the Elite Eight, Final Four, or even to the championship game. Even though I think that they will get to the second weekend, there's always possibility for an upset in the first round and especially in the second round as well. So that is why I'm leaving a whole point of room just for that reason, but I disagree with this hot take. Next up, we got one coming in here from Manny, and he says UConn will lose in the first round. Now, this is one that I can kind of get behind, and in some of my March Madness bracket predictions videos, I've chosen UConn to lose in the first or second round. I just don't think that this year they have the team to make a really deep run. I could see them possibly making it to the second round or the Sweet 16, maybe even the Elite Eight. I don't think that there's any chance of UConn three-peating this year for sure, but on this one, I'm going to give this one a solid 7, which is pretty low for me. That is a good hot take that I think could definitely be possible. I think the right matchup against UConn, they could definitely lose, whether it's a 12 over a 5, an 11 over a 6, or maybe even a 13 over a 4 if UConn can get to a 4 seed. I think it is very possible UConn could lose and get upset in the first round. I really like this hot take. Next one's coming in here from a Clone Cone, and he says the SEC, specifically Kentucky, Tennessee, and Florida, disappoints in the tournament. So all 3 of those teams, and really the entire SEC, to disappoint in the tournament. I think the SEC is going to have a really good tournament, and I think it's most likely we get a national champion from the SEC. I think Auburn and Alabama are probably my 2 favorites out of the SEC to possibly win a national championship, but I think Kentucky could definitely make a pretty deep run, potentially to the Final Four or the Elite Eight, and same to Tennessee or Florida. So I think one of these teams at least gets to the Elite Eight, but I can definitely see them all losing in the first weekend or by the Sweet 16. So if that's what you are going for, I'm going to rate this actually about an 8, because I think one of them probably goes further to at least the Sweet 16 or the Elite Eight, and I don't see all 3 of them losing in the first weekend, so I'm going to rate that a little bit higher, about an 8. Next one we got from a few different people, and that is that Kentucky loses in the first round once again. We've seen it happen a couple of times recently, whether it was to a 15-seeded St. Peter's team or to a 14-seeded Oakland team last year, who went on a tear and shocked the world by upsetting Kentucky last year once again, but they have a new head coach. It is no longer John Calipari, it is Mark Pope. Will they lose again in the first round? I actually disagree with this hot take. I could see Kentucky losing maybe in the second round, the Sweet 16, but I don't see them losing in the round of 64. I just don't see it happening this year. It would be almost as shocking as St. Peter's, Oakland-esque upset if they were to lose again in the first round. I think that this team that they have is full of veterans, full of some experience, and actually some really good three-point shooting, like some of the best in the entire country, which I think is really going to help them in March. So I'm going to really disagree with this one. I'm going to rate this about a 9.1, just because anything can happen in March Madness. So I want to leave some room there, but I don't agree with this one. Our next one is coming in here from Jason Tatum, and he says Illinois makes the Final Four and San Diego State doesn't make it to March. So the pretty bold takes here. Illinois to make it to the Final Four in itself, pretty bold take. You know, Illinois is a really good team. They have a couple of good freshmen, some good guard play there for the Illini. So I don't hate that one. That one in itself, I would probably rate about an 8.5. I want to leave some room there. You know, I think that they have potential to go far. They made it to the Elite Eight last year, but they have a pretty new team. You know, it is not the same team as last year, but I do think it is definitely possible. As far as adding San Diego State to not make it to March Madness, I think San Diego State's going to make it to March Madness. I think they're going to finish as one of the better teams in the Mountain West. I think the Mountain West gets multiple bids once again this year, at least two, and one of those is most likely going to be Utah State. I think the other one's going to be San Diego State. So I don't really agree with that one either. So for those two, both things to happen, I'm going to actually rate it a 9.5. This one is coming in here from two different people, and that is that some variation of UC Irvine is going to make a Cinderella run. I think one person said a Cinderella run type run like Loyola Chicago did, and the other person said that they will make the Elite Eight. So pretty similar takes here, and I like UC Irvine a lot. I really do. And I was actually pretty high on UC San Diego watching them, and then UC Irvine came in and beat them in that league so far. So is it possible that they could get two bids out of the Big West? I think it is possible. I highly doubt it, but I think UC Irvine is a pretty good team, and it wouldn't surprise me too much if they were another mid-major who made a really deep run. However, it is going to take a lot of luck and also a lot of good matchups for UC Irvine to be able to pull it off. So I have to rate it highly, even though I would love to see it happen. I'm still going to rate it about a 9.5. Our next one's coming in here from Brady, and he says Gonzaga won't make the NCAA tournament. And this is one that I could actually see happen. And I saw this take, and I was like, okay, this definitely got to be in the video because it is a pretty good take that can be realistic if Gonzaga keeps losing, but it's still pretty hot. You know, it's a good take. And I'm actually going to rate it about a 7.8. And that is because I still think Gonzaga, even though they're coming off of back-to-back losses to Oregon State and Santa Clara, just not playing good at all whatsoever. They don't have a good quad one record, and they're not dominating the West Coast Conference like they normally do. So I can see why people think Gonzaga doesn't deserve to make the tournament at this point, or if they continue to lose, they won't. I think if they continue to lose, they definitely don't, but I still think that NCAA Tournament Committee is still going to find a way to sneak Gonzaga in there. Even if it is a 10 or an 11 seed, they will find a way to get this brand into the tournament one way or another. So I'm going to have to rate it still pretty highly, about 7.8, but it would be pretty crazy if Gonzaga missed the tournament. Our next one's coming in here from Spartan, and he says Michigan State wins the Natty, and this is a pretty bold take. I actually just did my bracket predictions a couple of days ago. I had Michigan State all the way in the championship game. I had them losing to Iowa State, though. So I do think that there is a path for this Michigan State team to get pretty far. But I think even them making the Final Four is a pretty bold take because they are a really good team. They're a team-oriented team. Their scoring comes from a lot of different players. They don't really have a star player on their team, but they are coached by a legendary coach in Tom Izzo, who has done it time and time again in March Madness, but he only has one national championship, and that was in the year 2000, so it's a long time ago, 25 years ago now. Will he get another one this year? I don't think so. I'm going to have to rate this pretty highly at like a 9.6. I just don't think Michigan State's going to win it all this year. I think that they could make a deep run, possibly even to the Final Four. I don't think they win it all. This one's coming in here from Andrew, and he says whoever wins the MAC will make a Cinderella run to the Elite Eight. So that is a pretty bold take. Another mid-major to make a Cinderella run. This time, whoever wins the MAC. Right now, it is looking like Akron. And I actually like this Akron team because you guys know I am a WVU fan. Akron has two former WVU players that transferred over there on their team that both start sometimes. James Okonkwo will start sometimes, and usually starts for them, and Seth Wilson will start about half the time. I think he recently got a couple of starts. So I would like to see Akron make a deep run. That would be really cool to see because I've watched those players play for my favorite team. But I could also see Ohio making the tournament. Now, do I see these teams making a run, though? I think that these teams will be the favorites out of that league. I don't know if I see them making a run, though. I rated the UC Irvine one about a 9.5. I'm going to have to go even higher on this one for the MAC, so I'm going to go a 9.8. I'd love to see it happen, but I just don't think it will. This one's coming in here from Bear Bezeled, and he says a team from California makes the Elite Eight. Could be UCLA, St. Mary's, San Diego State, or UC Irvine. Now, this one, you got a couple of teams that could all get there. All these teams, any team has a chance to make a run in March Madness. That is why we love this sport so much. I don't really like how UCLA has been playing lately. I don't think they're going to make a deep run, so I'm going to exclude them. St. Mary's, I could see making a run this year. They lost some players to the transfer portal this year, but they are still really good and still that gritty team that shows up every year. They just have been unable to make a run in March Madness. I don't know if this year's team is going to be any different. San Diego State does have a chance. I think they will make it in March Madness this year. I just don't know if they're going to make another deep run this season. They do have really good players that I enjoy watching, like Miles Bird and Nick Boyd. A really fun backcourt there. I just don't know if they make a run, but that might be your best chance. And then UC Irvine, who I talked about earlier. I'm still going to rate this pretty highly at about an 8. Because you have some good teams here and anything can happen, I'm going to leave some room. But I don't know if any of these teams from California make the Elite Eight this year. Next one is coming in here from Joneses, and he says, WVU makes the Final Four carried by Javon Large. I've been saying it, and I'm sticking with it. Now, I actually really like this hot take a lot, being I am a WVU fan, and Javon Small has been one of the better players in the entire country, and that is not just bias saying that. He has literally like Jaden Stone, who has yet to play a game but averaged 20 points per game last season, transferred over from Detroit Mercy. If they can get these players back in and incorporated with plenty of time before March Madness, and they get some game time played, I think that WVU could definitely make a run. Now, to the Final Four is pretty bold. I don't have that expectations for my team this year, but I do think that they can get to the Sweet 16, and I'm still going to rate this about an 8.8. I think it's still pretty hot. I don't know if I fully trust them to have enough depth or be a good enough rebounding team to make it that far. But if Javon Large can show up in the tournament, teams will be scared. This one's coming in here from AL Tobias, and he says Wisconsin makes the Final Four. Now, Wisconsin is a really good team. They have some good players that I think can show up big time in March Madness, kind of similar to WVU. And John Tunji and also Blackwell. Blackwell is a really fun point guard that I really enjoy to watch whenever I watch Wisconsin. I almost like to watch him more than John Tunji, and John Tunji is an excellent scorer. They have that type of team that I could see going pretty far. Now, a Final Four, though, is pretty bold, so I rated the WVU one about 8.8. I'm going to rate this one the same, an 8.8. I think Wisconsin and WVU have similar chances to go on a deep run this year if they get the right draw. We got our next one coming in here from Tyler, and actually a couple more people. I think 3 different people said this same hot take, and that is something along the lines of Baylor will lose in the first round. Now, to be honest, it is not that hot of a take. They did have a big comeback against Kansas State yesterday and actually played really good. VJ Edgecombe had the best game so far of the year of his season as a freshman. He dropped 30 on Kansas State. They're going to need him to do that in March Madness. They're going to be probably anywhere from a 7 to a 10 seed, and those seeds can lose, and they just haven't been playing that good. So I think this is going to be my lowest rated hot take of this video, possibly. I'm going to rate it under a 5 at about a 4. I think it is highly likely Baylor probably loses in the first round at this point. This one's coming in here from Trickshot Bros, and he says Ole Miss makes a Sweet 16 run. This is another one that, it's not that bold of a take. The way that Ole Miss have been playing, Malik Dia has really broken out the last few games, and has been playing amazing. And Sean Padula is an excellent point guard who has experience. Chris Beard and Mark Adams are back teamed up at the coaching staff, and they're playing fantastic. They did just lose to Texas A&M at home last night, but they got a win on the road at Alabama. They went to overtime on the road at Mississippi State. These are tough teams in the best league in the country. So I think Ole Miss to the Sweet 16 is going to be a little bit higher than Baylor losing in the first round. I'm going to rate it a solid 5. Our next one's coming in here from BW Pro, and he says, Alabama and Auburn play each other in the Final Four or the national championship game. So to get an Iron Bowl basketball game in the Final Four of the national championship would be very cool. And both of these teams have the potential to get that far. They are both projected 1 seeds at this point in time as I am recording this video. So it would be awesome to see, but to predict that to happen, I just don't know if it is that likely. I'm probably going to rate it about a 9.2, which is actually lower than you might think because, you're leaving some room there for that to happen. Technically about 8% chance for that to happen. So that's still a pretty high chance because these teams are so good. And considering they are both 1 seeds right now, they won't meet before the Final Four is the earliest that they can meet. So that would be cool to happen. The only time I can think of something like this actually happening was when Coach K was in his final year before retiring, and he faced North Carolina. Duke versus North Carolina in the Final Four, and North Carolina won. I think that was 2022. So that was a fun Final Four game there between 2 in-state rivals. That was the last time something like this happened. So it is possible. This one's coming in here from Owen, and Owen says, St. Mary's goes on a run to the Elite Eight. Tulane wins the American, and they go on a Cinderella run to the Sweet 16. And Michigan State, Illinois, or Maryland make the Final Four. Auburn doesn't make the Final Four if they are matched up with Houston. So a lot of things to take in here. And right off the bat, for all of this to happen in one single March Madness and you to predict all that right, is going to be rated pretty highly. So I'm going to go ahead and rate it a 9.7. Pretty high because it is a lot of things to happen all at once. So St. Mary's, I think that's pretty hot take there. I don't know if they can do it. I think that there's a chance with their play style, but they have to get the right matchups. And then Tulane to win the American, I don't know. I don't know if Memphis necessarily runs away with it in the conference tournament, but I kind of like North Texas as kind of the second best team there in the American. I've been high on North Texas recently. And as far as Michigan State, Illinois, or Maryland to make the Final Four, I could see one of those teams doing it. Maryland would probably be the most surprising, but Michigan State and Illinois, I could definitely see it. And then Auburn to not make the Final Four if they are matched up with Houston. They played already once this year. Houston's, been playing better recently. It was kind of a close game the first time they met. I could see them knocking them out next time. So interesting takes here, but I'm going to have to rate it pretty highly. Next one is coming in here from Luke, and he says Marquette gets upset in the first round. So this is an interesting take. I actually had this in my bracket predictions video where I predicted the games if they were to happen today. I had Marquette losing to, I believe, a 14 seed as a 3 seed. So it is a hot take, and I was kind of having some fun. You guys know that I like to pick some upsets, so it is still a hot take. I think this Marquette team is really good. I think Cam Jones is one of the best players in the entire country. My only problem with Cam Jones is, like I mentioned, he kind of tries to be a playmaker a little bit too much. I understand he is the top playmaker on that team, and he is really good at it, but sometimes he's got to take over for himself and score the basketball, because I've seen him be able to do it, especially in that Maryland game. I remember early on in the year, on the road at Maryland, he was able to take over that game. I want to see more of that from Cam Jones, but they do have a pretty good front court as well and other good guards on this team like Stevie Mitchell and Sean Jones. They have a solid team, so it is still pretty high. I got to rate it pretty high at about a 9.2. Next one's coming in here from Fishing Spear, and this was a similar hot take to what we saw earlier with Auburn and Alabama, but he says Michigan and Michigan State both make it to the Final Four. So this is interesting. Kind of similar, like I said. It happened with Duke and North Carolina. Could it happen with Alabama and Auburn, or Michigan and Michigan State? Possibly. I think this one is a little bit hotter than saying Alabama and Auburn. I think they're more likely to both make it to the Final Four, and I rated that like a 9.2, I want to say. So I'm going to rate this one higher at like 9.6. I think Michigan State, I think I could see one of these teams making a Final Four run, but that is not guaranteed. For them both to be there, I got to rate that one pretty high. Next one's coming in here from College Basketball Report, and he says Creighton makes the Elite Eight or the Final Four. Now, I don't know if this is the year for Creighton. I know that they got the big Cockburner down low, who has been playing a lot better so far this season. He's been playing really good, and Stephen Ashworth is an excellent point guard, and they got some other pieces there as well. And I could maybe agree with you. It is looking like they are going to make the March Madness tournament. Maybe they can get a win or two and make it into the Sweet 16. I just don't see them making the Elite Eight or the Final Four, especially without Pop Isaacs. That injury is going to be really brutal for this Creighton team this year. I just don't think this is the year for the Blue Jays, so I'm going to rate this one pretty highly, about 9.4. From Hoop Center, and he says Louisville goes to the Elite Eight. Now, I do like this hot take because Louisville has been playing some of the best basketball in the country lately, and they are kind of looking like the clear number 2 team in the ACC right behind Duke. Pat Kelsey, what he's been able to do with this Louisville team in just his first year of coaching, considering how bad Louisville has been as a program the last so many years, they have finally found their guy. This is going to be an excellent building year. I think that is, no matter what happens in the tournament for Louisville this year, this is an excellent building year, and they have a very, very bright future to get their program back on the right track. But I could see them getting to the Elite Eight given the right matchups, if they get the right draw in March Madness, and they have some of these players that are veterans and could lead them down the stretch, specifically Chucky Hepburn. So I'd say look out for Louisville. I am going to rate this one pretty highly, about a 9, because I don't know if they will be able to make that run, but it is possible. Anything can happen in March Madness, and I think Louisville right now, they can climb seeds. If they can get up to about a 5 seed, maybe even a 4, I would say it's getting more and more likely. Got one from Andrew, and he says Oregon gets upset in the first round of March Madness. Now, this is one that I have seen before, and I do think it is possible. I think Oregon is a really well-coached team, but are they playing, better than expected at this point? They might be a little bit overseeded, which gives some opportunity for some of these mid-major teams to come in and knock them out. I'm not going to bet against Dana Altman in March Madness because I think he will probably get a win at least in the first round. But we know some of these Big Ten teams in history, in recent history at least, one of the better Big Ten teams usually goes down in the first round on a crazy upset. Could it be Oregon this year, being their first year in the Big Ten Conference? I think it is possible. I'm going to rate this one an 8.5. All right, and our last one is coming in here from Who Asked You, and he says Oregon, Kentucky, Purdue, and West Virginia, and Kansas all miss the Sweet 16. Now, this one is pretty bold. We just talked about Oregon. I do think that one is possible. Kentucky, we talked about them possibly losing in the first weekend of March as well. I do think that is somewhat possible. Purdue, I could see them losing early. Matt Painter has lost early in March quite a bit. And West Virginia. West Virginia right now is looking like a 7 or 8 seed after their recent loss to Arizona State. Could definitely see them losing in the first round potentially. And then Kansas. I'm not high on Kansas this year, but for all of these to happen, I would say one of Kentucky, Purdue, or Kansas will probably make the Sweet 16. For all these teams to not make it there, I do see the vision here. I see the vision, but I still have to rate this one pretty highly at about a 9.6, just because one of these teams might make it there. So I got to rate it still pretty highly. But that is going to do it for this episode of College Basketball Hot Takes. Let me know what you guys think about some of these hot takes. What do you agree with? Which one do you disagree with? Let me know down below in the comments section. And if I didn't get to your hot take, I apologize. We got a lot of them this time. I'll try to get it next time. Just be on the lookout for that community post and reply to that, and I'll try to get to them. Just come up with a really good one, and you'll probably get picked. That is going to do it for this one. Subscribe, and thank you so much for watching.